Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I am an atheist and a skeptic, and I haven't been posting recently. Things have gotten a little busy here with lots of appointments, meetings, grading, course prep, other BS of life, even some social activities, thankfully. And I'm hoping some of these areas ease up, but posting will continue to be erratic for the time being. You see, I'm not a full-time YouTuber. This is very much a free time, fun activity, so this YouTube is the first thing that gets kicked off the to-do list. But anyway, I have been thinking about doing a series on the trope of the angry atheist, how it functions and why, what Christians and other theists get out of it. They certainly aren't talking to us. I even made this illustration of a preaching theist yelling at an atheist as a way to show why someone might not leave this situation in the best of moods. You know, it happens. So today, the first installment on looking at angry atheists, we are going to examine this blog post on the Catholic site Word on Fire entitled The Encouraging Anger of the Atheist. It's from June 16th, 2021. Here is our author, Todd Warner. He describes himself as a husband, father, practicing internal medicine physician, and the managing editor of Evangelization and Culture, the Journal of the Word on Fire Institute. His writing can be found at these places. Oh, non-existent Lord help us. He's written for the National Review and the New York Post. Lasai. Oh, and here's some fun. He enjoys being constantly outsmarted by his two clever daughters. Well, that is cute. You know, one thing I do appreciate about Catholics is they're not just all Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. They actually have other stuff going on. But anyway, I have to say Catholics also tend to be more reasonable and a little less batshit than evangelicals and literalists. I mean, they do accept most science, including evolution, and they're willing to read some of the Bible as allegory. Having said that, there are still problems with the way they construct their imaginations of the world, and this post will elucidate some of that. Well, enough of this blibbity-blab, into the breach, blog post. Todd starts us off. Here is a little something that I have always wondered. When it comes to atheists engaging the question of God, that is, his existence, his providential love, his judgment, and his narrative for our lives from their beginnings to eternity. Whoa, pretensions, man. I have wondered why there is often so much anger. If there is no God, all faith is falsehood, and eternity is simply a covered hole in the ground. Oh, gosh. Then why should the atheists care so much to prove it? Why do some insist on erecting elaborate arguments and systems of thought around some truth? If there is no source of truth, why obsess about it? It is endlessly fascinating to me that theists think their faith is just this abstract thought experiment and not a system of beliefs that push them to act in the real world. To be honest, I wouldn't give a flying fuck on a magic carpet about religion and a god if I didn't see theists try to force everyone to be the way they think they should be and deny them their rights and their ways of going about the world without all of this judgment and law getting in the way. We just had elections in the US, and one of the big issues was abortion access. For lots of Christians who are trying to sway our laws, life begins at fertilization or conception, and that life has a right to be born. I actually prefer for all pregnant people to be in control of their bodies and make the decisions with their doctors that are good for them and their health. And I can't prefer the right, if it even has a right, of a cluster of cells to continue growing into a fetus. I don't want to go into all of the clusterfuck of problems that our Supreme Court created by removing this right, but there are women dying, in danger of dying, or watching their child die just after birth because of this decision. This one thing has created so much more suffering in the world than religious people think. These religious people are only imagining babies and babies and babies, and they are not in touch with the lived experience of real humans who are suffering because of this decision. All they can think is slutty sluts or using abortion as birth control, which is not true, and there's just a lot more complexity to that. Don't want to get into all of that, but hey, my opinion, man. And just a silly one that is part of my atheist origin story, Christians want to deny atheists access to public spaces to put up memorials when they themselves can and have done so for a long time. It's a small thing, but it means that you don't belong in these same spaces. We are going to deny you that, and we have the power to do so. And I know Catholics aren't big proselytizers, but I can't tell you how many times I've been preached at in public. Heck, the JW stopped me in a Home Depot parking lot to hand me a tract. I mean, they're nice and everything, but I don't want that shit. And I've had to walk past fire and brimstone and everyone's a sinner preachers on streets and college campuses. Theists aren't leaving everyone alone, I guess is my point. You're acting like you're just minding your own business, but you ain't. And this isn't even getting to the part about how sermons are on YouTube now, and we can see what preachers are saying about atheists, how we just want to sin, how we are lying to ourselves, how we are horrible people. I mean, come on. You act like this is just some little niche thing over to the side, but it isn't. So I think it's normal to get a little annoyed that Christians trample over everyone else in the US and other countries, try to deny people spaces and rights, trash talk them in church, and yell at them in public spaces. But let's keep going, because I could be here all day talking about how this is a real world thing and not just something that's in your head to think about. Let's go on. Todd continues. If there is no God, no ultimate source of the true, good, and beautiful, then we lack an eternal standard, a cosmic criterion by which to live rightly. Instead, we are left navigating our lives rudderless except for our appetites. Without God, why shouldn't we simply live for today, slake our carnal thirst, and immerse ourselves in hedonistic pleasure? Why don't we stop asking the big questions about life and accept that there simply are no big answers, but few, other than the most misanthropic people, are actually doing that? Okay, so please demonstrate that a God is at the source of true, good, and beautiful. These are labels we put on things. Christians have so many problems with concepts. They want them to exist as things. So true means something comports with reality. Good means it creates some kind of benefit. Beautiful means we find something aesthetically pleasing. I mean, these are very reductive definitions, but what I mean to say is we have created labels for abstracts. They don't exist without that, without our idea of them, without our judgment of them. And I love this insistence on hedonism as a natural result of lacking God. I don't think Todd realizes how impractical it is to live only for pleasure. I mean, unless you're rich, you have to work. There's rent or a mortgage, bills to pay, you have to eat, things cost money. And since you have to work, you won't be able to party every night. I mean, you'll need to rest and get sleep. To be clear, for me, if you're a hedonist, as long as everyone involved is a consenting adult, I don't see a problem. But most people I know get pleasure from all kinds of things that are not what we usually label hedonism. Watching a good movie, going to a concert and listening to good music, chatting with other people, playing a silly game, gardening, taking a walk, walking in nature, or enjoying a sunset. And there's joy in accomplishing tasks, planning a project, watching it build piece by piece, seeing the fruits of your labor. There's a reason why people prefer what we call careers to jobs. Careers are meaningful. They provide challenges and areas to prove yourself. Jobs are just something you do to make money, and most people need to at least do that, like I said. And, people get pleasure from having and raising children. That's a lot of hard work and stress, and there are a lot of bad things that go along with it. But some people get a lot of satisfaction from them. Maybe most people. I don't know. So you don't need God to enjoy most of life. Why do theists always reach for carnal pleasures, i.e. sex and drinking and drugs, all these things that they label sin? This is clearly a form of poisoning the well, of saying to other believers, if you give up this belief, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to fall into this lifestyle. And it's just not true. There's just so much more to life that's enjoyable, and you don't need a God to do it. And as for big questions, why do we need a God to ask big questions? That's really dumb. Lots of people all through time have asked big questions. Just think about it for a minute. Oh, and maybe ask an atheist Christ on a Krispy Kreme donut. All right, onward and downward. Todd goes on. Perhaps the reason many atheists are angry is their sense that faith in God has been damaging to people. Maybe, they argue, outdated strictures are constraining people from realizing their fullest potential, and to liberate us from that oppression requires the church and its teachings to be razed to the ground. Ooh, I like this fantasy. That would be a fine argument, but it presupposes the notion of justice. If something is wrong, then there must be a right. Thus, if there is such a thing as justice, but there is no God, where does our sense of justice come from? Ancient philosophy, human political systems, fashionable modern philosophers. I love that. Our gut? Is faith in a source of justice unreasonable while subscribing to a godless moral code? That is, a golden rule without a Christ who offered it is the pinnacle of reason? Okay, so now other people also had that golden rule, like he wasn't even the first, but anyway, hey, there is some self-awareness here. Yes, religion has been damaging. It is constraining people from realizing their fullest potential. But then you go off the rails with this abandonment of where the sense of justice comes from. You know, I think Plato and his ideals, and then Plotinus with his marrying of Plato and Christianity, have messed all of this up for everybody. I've already spoken a little bit about these abstracts, but they don't exist in some ideal space. They don't need to be created by a god. Justice is a label we put to a situation where people get what we think they should get, and injustice when we think their lot is not deserved. It's not a mystery that we can look around and see people's circumstances and make determinations. And yes, how we view our sense of justice has been molded by millennia of thinking from philosophy, ancient and modern, and yes, political systems as well, because a lot of that political thinking is philosophical thinking. And is it from our gut? Yes, because it is our sense of empathy that makes us want things to be just. By the way, scientists have shown that some animals have a sense of justice. You can look up the experiments. So did God implant them too? Do they have a soul or whatever it is? I don't know how that's supposed to work anyway. It just appears that animals that live in groups can notice what others of their species have or get, and they have opinions about it. Humans have a complex language, so we have whole systems of thought around it. Okay, enough of this, because I'll never be done if I keep going, but a lot of interesting stuff to look out about what animals are doing in the wild. Let's go back to Todd. GK Chesterton puzzled over the unbeliever's anger and the paradox of endless contradictory complaints about Christianity. Okay, we're going to take these one by one, but one thing I have to say is, way to go, not quoting an atheist, but just quoting some thinker about atheists and why they're angry. Like, let's never go talk to atheists or anything, right? Okay, let's see what Chesterton has to say. Some say Christianity is a religion that hates women, while others claim it is a religion that worships women, parens Mary. Okay, this isn't a contradiction. Religion is disdainful of women as agents with control over their lives. Okay? And the Mary worship, what do we worship Mary for? Giving birth to a special dude. We don't care about her lived experience or her choices. Worship does not mean love or care for people, by the way. In this case of women, I just want to really drive home the fact that it's only the image that matters, not the way the person views that image. Next up, it is a faith of unrepentant war. It is a faith of embarrassing docility. Okay, this to me, again, is not a contradiction. Religious leaders, let's say, have demanded war on behalf of a god, and the individuals who are in the religion are the ones who have to be docile by bowing to whatever the leaders say needs to be done, including dying in a war. So those don't have to be contradictions. Like, I know we want to say, like, war is aggressive, and if you're docile, you're not aggressive, but there can be a distinction between the people who are leaders, who are telling people what to do, and the people who are following. And the people who are leaders can often pose as people who are docile and pretend like that's what is required, while they themselves want these aggressive things. So I don't see a contradiction here. It's just different people at different times doing things. Next up, it is an imposing intellectual system. It is the stuff of fairy tales. Well, apparently someone doesn't know that there are researchers who study fairy tales. We think of them as silly stories for children, and they're simplistic. But they are far more than just a simple story. There's a lot to unpack about fairy tales and why they were told and how they evolved over time. Because they did. They're not all the same. There are collections and collections of fairy tales. But we can have an intellectual system around the fairy tales. We can have a lot of intellectual talk, and that's what this is. We have, I don't know, fairy tales may be a little bit hyperbolic to talk about religion. These are stories that were told, and they were told by people for certain aims, and then there's an apparatus around the stories that explains why we should accept that, or what the lessons are, what a god wants. So this isn't a contradiction. You can have an intellectual system around fairy tales. Next up, it is simultaneously cynical and naive. I would say that the leaders are cynical because they want to use the followers. The followers are naive. The leaders can be naive too because they want to think that this system is right. Again, I don't see that these are necessarily contradictory. Rule-bound and gut-directed. Again, I do not see a contradiction because you can base those rules off of things you felt in your gut. And each individual Christian will have their own rules that they got from pulling stuff out their ass, aka gut directed. So this doesn't have to be a contradiction. There are a lot of people in this religion, and different people are doing different things. So these can be different people, or they can base one part of it on another. Meager and ostentatious. Just look at the fucking Catholic Church, man. You got churches that look very meager, and then you have the Vatican. Not going to say more than that. Irrelevant and dangerous. I wish Christianity were irrelevant. It definitely is dangerous. It should be irrelevant. It doesn't have anything really to offer the modern world. So that's what we mean. It doesn't have anything to offer, and yet people continue to push it. And again, we haven't talked to an atheist about any of this. This is just Chesterton's, positing about this. And he concludes, the shape of Christianity grew a queerer shape every instant. Hey man, your words, not mine. I'm not going to read the next paragraph because it's a quote from this Chesterton that talks about a man. Different people have different opinions about how tall or short he is, and maybe he's just a normal man and everybody else is wrong. But I just think it's a very strange analogy that you would take random opinions of people, you would posit a central correct person and act like he's the only one being judged, like he's not doing any judging or whatever, because everybody is constantly judging everybody. So this is just bizarre, and you're controlling who is the correct person because, of course, you're religious. But mainly, I think the point of this is to avoid dealing with each piece of criticism and wondering if there's any validity. So why do people say that it's a religion of war or a docile religion, and deal with these criticisms and say, oh, well, there's a contradiction. So if there's a contradiction, you can toss the whole thing out. You don't have to consider any of it. I think that's the whole point of this. They don't want to consider any criticism. Moving forward, the next paragraph talks about maybe the root of anger in atheists is the feeling that God has been unfair or inscrutable, and it's not really all that interesting. We've heard it before, and I don't find this analysis to be very interesting. It's just like, hey, maybe people are angry at God because their mom died or something. No, talk to an atheist, dude. Enough said on that. The next paragraph is that maybe atheist anger is a visceral reaction to the workings of grace, and I have no idea what that means, even with this explanation. And I guess just because somebody gets angry, then that anger means that there's some there to the belief, and that's just garbage. And of course, Todd wants to think that we might convert, but don't think so, dude. And just somebody tell me what the workings of grace are, because that's just like garbage to me. It's not even word salad. It's not tasty. It has no dressing on it. It's just meaningless words. And so this brings us at last to the last paragraph and the reason for the hope that is the title of this blog post. I'm only going to read the central sentence. The angry atheist may have a vested and proud interest in disbelief, but her anger tells us that the question of God matters. I wish it didn't. But as long as people keep trying to change laws and deny science based on their religion in a way that hurts others, I will continue to talk about atheism, and I will continue to speak out. Now, Todd seems to think that the fact that I or others want to speak out against quote-unquote God, I'm really not speaking out against God, I'm speaking out against believers. That should give everybody that is a believer hope, because that interest shows that there's a there. But there isn't. God is irrelevant. But humans who believe in him are not. And that is my main point. And please, dude, talk to an atheist. Last time I'm going to say it in this video. All right, that's what I have for you this time. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments about what Todd had to say, please put them in the comment section below. You know I love to read your comments. And while you're down there, you can like and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. Love it when you do the YouTube stuff, and hopefully I will see you in one very soon. Oh, and if you like what I do, I have a buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee. Link is in the description below, and I will see you sometime soon, whenever that is, in my erratic posting style. Bye for now.